Today we're going to have some fun with the English language, specifically how it can be really confusing. And so let's start with the word here. And that word is exorbitant. So if something is exorbitant, it's very high, and most of the times it talks about a price or the amount you pay for something. So though he loved the Lamborghini, the price was so exorbitant, there was no way he could ever own one. So you can think of a good mnemonic here, X in orbit. It's outside somebody's orbit. So speaking of the universe, we have this word here, astronomical. And astronomical describes the universe, something that is very, very large. Could be the universe, could be something else. But here we have astronomy, so you can easily think of the universe. And here we have this whole X orbit thing, out of orbit, excessive. And so far, there's nothing too confusing about either of these words. But let's try another one here. If something is astronomical, very large, or excessive, or huge, just like the universe. And therefore, the universe is also infinite. And we have the word here, infinitesimal. So if something is infinitesimal, it must be really, really large, like infinity, it's infinite. But wait a second. Infinitesimal means really, really small, like those tiny dots right there. So if there's a minute difference, that is the difference between 10 to the negative 9 and 10, or 0.1 to the negative 9. Very tiny, tiny difference between these two. That is an infinitesimal difference. Obviously, that doesn't always have to deal with math, or that is, it's not always pertinent to math. It can describe any sum. Speaking of pertinent, the opposite of pertinent is impertinent, correct? Wrong. Whereas pertinent means relevant, impertinent means rude and saucy and bold. You're cheeky, basically, as the British would say. A good synonym for impertinent is insolent. Insolent means the same thing. Someone insolent is cheeky and has the nerve to say or do something. Well, therefore it must somehow relate to the word indolent, right? Or maybe indolent is insolent? Easy to confuse these two, right? But they are definitely different. To be indolent is to simply be lazy. So if somebody is doleful, then, of course, they must be full of energy, right? No, because as I said, the English language is very confusing. So if someone's indolent, they're lazy. But if somebody's doleful, they're simply really sad, which is strange, but it comes from the Latin for pain, dole. And there's another word, which is dolorous, which also doesn't necessarily mean pain, but also means sadness. So if someone is mournful, they're dolorous, or doleful, they're sad and mournful. So if you're sad and mournful, you can be very, very sad and mournful. And a good GRE word, one that's not too confusing, but just sounds intimidating, is lugubrious. That's right, fun word to say, lugubrious. This word means you're really, really sad. You're excessively sad and mournful. Speaking of excessive, a good synonym for excessive is inordinate. Inordinate can talk about feelings, sadness. It can also talk about degrees or amount, just like the word exorbitant. And so there we've come full circle, or here we've had our little orbit of GRE vocabulary words, ones that are straightforward and others that are confusing. And so it's a good idea to make sure you know all these words.